That's what we look at, right? So you need the left hand. So what is it? That's how you calculate. That's the meaning. What does it mean? Do it again, right? 11,000. 11,000. 416. Right? Times 78%. Yeah, that's what it is. Now, when I read it, should I say FBR, 78%? Just say, approximately, you know, 8,000. I should just give this. I calculated it by multiplying the FAR times the area, the Florida area. That's matched. And if it's wrong, then their numbers are wrong. Because their numbers are wrong. There needs to be consistency. Give copies to all these, and when you're done, you can hand your original to them. But I want to say one. Yeah. Here, take a picture of these signatures. And then finish with the signatures? So they get
right now, I can't review this whole packet prior to today.
I buy some, but I kind of believe it's a show. We don't know all these. That's okay. There's enough space. Yeah, don't worry. Go ahead. Make yourself comfortable. Just stretch yourself.
I'll be in tomorrow. Just, I'll remember.
They can help you. They help you, and they should. They should. The issue is they're supposed to look at this actually, and it's like,
Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Town of Ramapo Zoning Board of Appeals. We want to get started, and before we do, I'm going to ask one of my colleagues to make a motion to have our alternate sit with us this evening.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to have Ms. Freeman sit with us tonight.
Do we have a second to that?
Second.
Okay, motion carries. Welcome. And also, Ms. Berkowitz, could you share something with our audience this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair. This board took passed a resolution some time ago in which the public speaks. We asked them to limit their comments to 3 minutes. We have a timer here, so we'll stop the timer when you start speaking, and at the 3-minute mark, we hope you wind your comments down. Madam Chair, also, you know, at 11 o'clock we close. That's our Cinderella.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have any students with us this evening? Okay. We hope you will enjoy the portion that you will be listening and seeing, and we'll sign for you at 9 o'clock.
All right, good evening. The first application on tonight is XBA 4689. The applicant is Moshe Shiner. This was adjourned from April 4th, 2019. The property is located at 5 Miele Road in Muncie, New York. The applicant is seeking variances of the requirements of section 376-41 of the zoning law of the Town of Ramapo to permit the construction, maintenance, and use of a 2-family dwelling with 1 accessory apartment, which will have less than the required lot area, lot width, total side setback, street frontage, maximum development coverage, floor area ratio. There was a GML disapproval received on January 15, 2019 with 15 comments. The affidavits of posting and notification are in the file, and this is to see the public hearing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Brian Carter for the applicant. Forgive my cold. This subject parcel that's before you is a 11,000 plus square foot parcel in the R15A zone. It's on Miele Road, about halfway between Summit and 306. I did submit in response to the GML that was noted, a letter dated January 24th, 2019, which asks for an override of the disapproval and comments 1, 2, 9, and 11. The proposal that's before you is a use which is permitted in the zone. The lot area and the lot width are existing conditions, and we are seeking the area variances that are outlined in the bulk table. Undoubtedly, this is an area of the town which has been which is undergoing a redevelopment, and older homes have been replaced with larger, more contemporary structures that are responsive to the needs of the modern family. And the variances that are sought in connection with this application are to achieve that end. Because it's within the range of uses that are contemplated in the zone, and because it's not the first time this use will feature the neighborhood, we don't believe that an adverse change will occur in the character of the neighborhood. And I know the word adverse change because whether no neighborhood never changes. Every neighborhood changes. The question is whether the change is for the better or whether the change is for the worse, not whether there's no change at all. Neighborhoods are constantly changing. Everything is constantly changing. And the introduction of a broader range of housing types that allows a wider array of families access to a neighborhood, in my view, is not only not an adverse change, it's a positive change. The wider range of housing choices that are available to any group of people in the neighborhood. It's good for the market, it's good for the choices that people have, and certainly replacing older homes with new construction, which is often facilitated by increasing the number of units, is a tried and proven way across the country to be able to get a wide variety of housing types and foster redevelopment and the replacement of out-of-date housing stock. So because this project would be in the community interest, because there are no significant off-site impacts that will adversely affect any of the adjoining homeowners, because zero net runoff is achieved, sewer impact fees are paid, and all other impacts are offset by the standards that are applicable to development. We respectfully argue that the balancing test favors the property rights of the applicant, and respectfully urge the board to grant the variances as requested.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carpenter.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Carpenter? No questions for Mr. Carpenter? Let's open this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
To the public. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this?
Yes, Madam Chair. For the record, Kevin Conway for the neighborhood objectors. I also have Peter Polisi to speak tonight. I'll be balancing my time for him to speak. He's a certified land use planner, licensed in New York, New Jersey, and speaks on applications of this type, has appeared before this board on many occasions. So I would ask, I would ask the board, I would yield the balance of my time to Mr. Polisi with regard to this application. Unfortunately, once again, we're back here to review a almost identical request from an identical developer with regard to seeking a two-family home with a single one accessory apartment in what is right now a single-family neighborhood. It's on an undersized lot, as you've heard, roughly barely 11,000 square feet, roughly half of the minimum lot area that's required by the statute. It's permitted developments in 15A of this type, but you have to have a minimum, not a maximum, not a sliding scale, but a minimum of 20,000 square feet in order to entertain an application of this type. And it's fairly, when the town board provided that relief to applicants, it was made and intended that there would be development, as Mr. Carpenter wants to have, but smart development on a lot that can accompany and deal with a two-family home with single family with a accessory apartment. That can be accomplished as the town board provided for on a 20,000 square foot lot, not a 10. At 10 or 11, that's the reason why it doesn't work in the lot. That's the reason why it doesn't work in the neighborhood. Virtually the building encompasses the entire lot. The FAR on this was, I want to say it's almost 95%. That tells you that it's not meant to be developed on a parcel that's small. That's why the minimum requirement, not maximum, is 20,000 square feet. This board has heard other applications where the board has granted an application like this when there's been roughly 18 or 19,000 square feet. That's something that would be more acceptable or understandable, but not 10,000 or 11,000 square feet. It doesn't work. Clearly, this would be a negative precedent, and this would change the neighborhood once and for all. The neighbors are here again to advise this board that they moved into a single-family neighborhood. That's where they want to stay. They wouldn't have an objection if the lot was 20,000 square feet, because the building would work on a lot of 20,000 square feet. It doesn't work on a lot of 10,000 square feet. It becomes a de facto apartment building in a single-family neighborhood. When you have that, with the amount of people that would be injected into the neighborhood, you're going to have issues with cars, buses, parking, and all types of issues. There's no play area, there's front yard parking. It becomes a mini apartment building in a single-family neighborhood. None of the surrounding neighbors are for this application. You have the prior precedent from this board of 7 Summit, which this board has to consider, and it's negative precedent to the applicant, but it's precedent. It can't be overlooked. It can't be ignored. That the Supreme Court decision from Judge Eisenpress reversed this board's decision with regard to this board not following prior board determinations like this, where you turn down a similar situated, almost identical two-family with a single-family apartment. You saw the GML. The GML was not favorable, and it's not favorable for a reason, not because they don't like development, not because they're against development in Ramapo, but because it's a 10,000, barely 11,000 square foot lot requiring 20,000 square feet. I didn't hear, perhaps I missed it, but I didn't hear any of the reasons the A through F reasons from 37691, your objectives in looking at a variance. Did you hear any professional testimony? Did you hear anything that would warrant your objectives at A through F as to why this applicant should be entitled to the relief when it's only half the size of the parcel that's required by what the town board gives you as the guidelines? I submit to you, just asking for it and wanting it, and the only basis that I've seen no professional testimony or any basis that would otherwise have this board grant such a substantial variance or variances. It's just pure builder greed, and that's not a basis for you to consider. That's not what provides for zoning. That's not what the law provides for a basis for relief, and you haven't had any presented to you tonight. So I'm going to submit to you the information that we're going to provide, GML, which you already have, the area map, which shows the neighborhood, the surrounding neighborhood. Many of the board members are aware because they reside in the surrounding neighborhood. The prior 7 Summit Realty decision from this board, as well as the prior decision from Judge Eisenpress, which you need to review, because make no mistake, Judge Eisenpress would not want to see this case a second time, or some situated case like this, where the board to otherwise ignore its legal duty and duty to the neighbors, as well as the prior application, similar situated for Mr. Carlin. Most important, I have the certificates of occupancy, which we got from the building department. That's the one factor that you can turn to determine whether or not, what is the character of the existing neighborhood. Are there any two-family with accessory apartments? Well, there aren't. The C of O's, not the tax maps, but the C of O, which is the only legal document that provides a person the ability to remain in the house, whether it's a single family or two-family, from the surrounding neighborhood, show that in fact there are no similar situated projects. The ones that have been here were turned down either by this board or were turned down by the court when the board made the mistake, respectfully, of approving it. So I ask the board not to fall into the trap of they need development or builder's greed. You're going to hear from the neighbors tonight. They're the ones who have to live and suffer with this. And it's important for the board to recognize that and listen to the neighbors. And I'm going to yield the remaining time to Mr. Khaleesi.
Thank you so much, Mr. Cowley.
Good evening.
Good evening. Name and address, please.
Yes, Peter Pulice, P-U-L-I-C-E, 344 Broad Avenue, Leonia, New Jersey.
Okay, are you an attorney?
No, I am a licensed professional architect and planner.
Could you raise your right hand? You promise to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
I want to start off with the comment by the applicant's attorney about change. Change is good when change is necessary. In this particular matter, this kind of change will radically deteriorate this existing neighborhood. This change is not a positive. So we make change for positive values. A change like this will turn this single-family area upside down. You have reports from the planning department and the highway department outlining the negative effects of a project of this nature, of a proposed project. And it is pretty determining that this kind of change is not warranted and it will be detrimental. Now, from the highway department, they're going by the impacts of the surrounding area with this multi-family development. The impacts include the traffic, soil condition, stormwater management system, which is not detailed on this plan. Also, when you review the site plan presented by Lawrence Toro, it's defective. The parking does not work. So how can you submit an application and a site plan to a board with defective parking?
Please watch
So-
the time. Please watch.
Yes. So I want to reiterate some things about the variances. The variances are not a hardship variance. It's not because the land is unusually shaped or that there is limitations in development. Here it's self-imposed. So as Mr. Conway said, it's grossly undersized for this kind of development. An 11,468 square foot lot is deficient for a single family. Now, how could it be considered for a two-family or a two-family with an apartment? It's totally not feasible. Also, the request for 7 variances that are self-imposed. The applicant is not demonstrating any kind of need or relief properly. These are all self-imposed variances that are caused by overdevelopment or property. So in my opinion, as a land use planner and as an architect, this will cause tremendous burden on that neighborhood and also impact the area and set a poor judgment and poor planning for the future. You're going to set a baseline for everyone to develop in this neighborhood. That is not warranted. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We do ask that submissions be given to us prior to the meeting, so you're aware. Yeah, we don't have time to review a 17th letter right now.
Name and address, please,
Rifki Engel, 3 Miele Road,
and your town.
Muncie.
Okay, could you raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
Yes.
Thank you.
My husband and I live on 3 Miele Road, a home that is approximately 1,495 square feet in size for over 20 years and have raised 4 children in this home. We're opposed to the application for variances for 5 Miele Road to enable a 1,667 square foot single home to be replaced with a multi-family home of 3 units totaling approximately 8,945 square feet. This is an increase of over 840% over the size of the home that is there right now and 600% larger than my home. This is a gross overutilization of a small, non-conforming lot and will vastly impact the quaint, small, single-family home community that we live in. There is no possible justification for the variance requested. Mr. Shiner is known to me as a real estate investor who purchased this home in November of 2017, apparently solely for the purpose of redevelopment. Simply by rezoning this district, R15A, Ramapo enabled very substantial redevelopment rights to build much larger homes on these small lots. If Mr. Shiner were expanding within the constraints of the current zoning under the 0.4 floor area ratio restriction for single-family zoning, he could expand to approximately 4,587 square feet, potentially without variances. This would be a very, very large home, very comfortable over what it is today, even if it included a single accessory apartment. In that case, I might be impacted and unhappy, but I recognize that this is outside of my ability to oppose. The fact is that he is trying to use a lot that is not even big enough for a single new family home in this district to build a 3-family home, 2-family plus 1 accessory instead, and this cannot be allowed by this board. Effectively, this is a change in use and not just a simple area variance. 2-family homes are allowed only on 20,000 square feet, which we discussed before. I'll just continue. If you converted 4 similarly sized lots totaling 45,000 square feet in this way to create 12 zones, it is easier for this board to see why this is a change in use of the zone and not a mere area variances. I'm asking the ZBA to recognize that the variances requested are so substantial in nature that they actually represent a change in use, and therefore a use variance should be required, but a use variance cannot be justified. I continue, and we're just simply opposed to this application. My mother will continue reading the more of the letter, but I made tables to see what the area looks like today, how many square footage every single home has, and what he's asking is absolutely outrageous. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address, please. Hannah Lurch, number 1 Miele Road, Monsignor Road.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Hannah Lurch. Do you affirm to tell the truth in your testimony this evening? Yes. Undesirable change in the neighborhood. This will cause the undesirable change in the neighborhood. All the homes, with the exception of Miele Road, are single-floor homes that are less than 15,000 square foot. Today, there has only been a single offer development in this area at 10 Miele Road, where 2 family homes were actually approved for a similar small non-confronting lot. However, this should not be considered as a precedent for this area. There are only 2 homes on the block that are 2 family homes. 11 Miele Road was a double lot, so the neighbors weren't shocked when it was considered for development as a 2-family home. They needed 20,000 feet and they had more than 90. 10 Miele Road was a wake-up call for our entire neighborhood, as we did not realize from the notice how completely awful what was being proposed would be, and this proposal is far more excessive than even 10 Miele Road. See how 10 Miele Road looks compared to the single-story homes. It sticks out like a sore thumb. Okay, if I don't know if you have this and you can see the difference, or I can show it to you later. Alternative variance. The applicant has the ability to renovate or rebuild the existing home within the constraints of the R15A requirements. It is simple, no justification for an extra building other than the agreed. The ZBA has the responsibility to protect the residents of Miele Road from this type of excessive heat. Substantially, all the variances being requested are substantial. Lot area variance requires is 40%. Lot width variance requires 30%. Side setback variance requires 45%. Total side setback variance requires 53.6%. Street frontage variance is 32%. Max development coverage is 30% more than an X1 use and 80% more than a X2 use. Far variance requires is shocking, 195%. Even if the applicant were to build a single-family home according to an X1, standard lot is already undersized and the lot width will still be non-confronting. Impact on environment. I am concerned about the increase in the height of the building, which will look out of place between my house and my neighbors and will cut off the sunlight and certainly invade my privacy, as the windows will be closer to my home and will overlook the windows on the side of my house. The increase in the value of the building that will be completely out of charter for the block. With the increase in the number of neighbors on a small lot with at least triple the garbage, traffic delivers children screaming and more, all within 11 feet of my home. The loss of the very large cherry tree in the front of the property next to my property. Then a fire in these large structures could spread more easily to my home because of the decreased distance between the buildings. This development will trigger further land speculation that will cause more rentals on my block and will significantly change the destiny of the block and cause many more cumulative effects. All in all, this applicant should be turned down this evening for being too excessive, impacting the neighborhood, and for a total lack of justification as there is none.
Mr. Berger, can I ask you to wind your comments down, please? You're over time. Please, if you want to, another moment.
Time is I know how many times we heard anything, so just, for the, I think it's just for the records that you have to send us the letters that we should come over but you and is whatever you want.
Yes, sir, very clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anyone else?
Good evening, Board. Deborah Munitz, 5 Roads Over.
Could you raise your right hand, please?
Ready?
Do you affirm to tell the truth in your testimony this evening?
I do. Thank you. I told them that I would help finish some of these things. I did actually sit down yesterday and help them organize their thoughts. Mr. Carbon did provide some requests to override the county GML, and they did include reasons as to in opposition of his rationality. His first argument was that they don't have any right. It's the county. They're looking outside their area. But the entire point of all of these changes is that there's a cumulative effect, and when you rezone one, especially for a bad reason, or no reason like this, it will have a domino effect, it will be a precedent, and there will be a tremendous cumulative effect on traffic and community character. And that propagates out into the area, and it does propagate out onto the county roads. So the fact that the GML triggers it doesn't mean that they don't have, once they have the right to make their comments, they are professional planners, and they are giving you professional planning reasons, and you need to consider them. So you can't just ignore them, even though he wants you to. He basically, and they made that comment in number 2 about the cumulative effects. The applicant wants the ZBA to simply ignore the zoning of this district and argue that the ZBA should look to other higher districts. And I want you to ask yourself, why do you need every single choice of housing on every single block? If every single block has a mix of every single housing, then every single area is going to be the same. And that's not desirable. That's not how a town is supposed to zone. That's why we have a comprehensive plan, and that is precisely why there are zoning districts. They asked to override comment 3 that the highway department asked for a traffic study. They didn't do it. They asked to override comment 7, asking for a review of fire safety issues beyond the minimum fire code. This is an ongoing thing. There's stuff that you should read here, because what the fire inspector raises is very different than what the people who are actually out there fighting fires ask. And one of the big problems that we have with our code, and what needs to be evaluated in updates to the comprehensive plan, is how deficient our current bulk standards are. There are situations where you literally are faced with illegal fire situations where you are putting up buildings that need aerial apparatus roads, and they're too far away from the roads because of just our bad bulk standards. You have other situations where you guys are allowing 10-foot and 11-foot spaces next to very large buildings, and it actually becomes impossible for the fire people to come in and even rescue people and put up the ladders, because they literally don't have enough clearance. They asked, I am ready. Yes, I do. So they asked to, so they're basically, if you look at the things that they're asking, the planner raised the issue of parking.
I know you know what it means. The question is, what are you going to do about it?
I'm summarizing one last sentence. Sorry. Thank you. So I think that it's very apparently clear that the county is making safety recommendations, and this professional planner is mimicking their recommendations. And as you can see here, they're actually asking you to completely ignore safety considerations, and I think that that alone should give you pause. So because we need to find these substantial, that it's self-created, that there are fire safety issues, and there's an absolute impact to the neighbors, you really need to make a motion to turn this down.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Mr. Carvin, give us a wrap-up, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask for the public hearing.
just have one procedural question.
I need to close the public hearing and only the presenting attorney continues with comments.
No, that's why I just make a request now.
Madam Chair,
Board members, any board members with the
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to close the
If you
public
want to
hearing.
speak, you better tell them because they're going to close the public hearing.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Any objections? Public hearing is
Just
now closed.
quickly, I did hear Mr. Conway mention that one of the board members recused himself from voting, so I just want to put on the record, Mr. Singer, do you have any issue with hearing this application and being impartial to it?
I have no interest particularly in this specific application.
Just so we're clear, I'm not whether he has an interest. Anyone who is within the zone of interest of this application.
Right, but as long as they can
There's
make
been-
an impartial,
There's two board members, I believe, that do, so that's why I make the request. They've been recused in the past, sometimes willingly, sometimes not willingly.
all right, well, as long as they feel that they can make, that they can decide this impartially, then they're allowed to,
Well, I haven't heard that, but I'm making the request.
Is there anyone on the board, thank you so much for that, thank you. Is there anyone on the board that feels as though they need to recuse themselves and they can't be impartial to this application?
Wait till she's finished talking.
No one, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly to sum up, I appreciate that individuals who have different opinions about the number of units. The applicant is prepared to remove the accessory apartment if that's something that would try to find a middle ground between the complaining neighbors and the applicant as well. But I have to, I don't believe that the board's granting of this variance is going to unleash a parade of horribles that was set forth by council. I take particular exception to council telling this board that Judge Eisenpress doesn't want your case to come back before her again. I actually believe that you're not allowed to speak in the name of a judge, you're not allowed to speak in the name of the court, and what I think Judge Eisenpress would be very disturbed to hear that she had an emissary here this evening on her behalf in the absence of the court speaking for itself. I think Judge Eisenpress, if she had something to tell this board or something to say to the public, she well knows how to do that. She doesn't need a hired gun lawyer to be a whisperer on her behalf. With respect to the substance of the application here, there are a number of variances as this board, which knows the neighborhood well, knows the relief that has been granted here. Obviously, the applicant is not asking you to look away from anything, rather we are very consciously proposing an expansion of the raise of housing options that are available to residents of this neighborhood, to suggest that inherently expanding the density from one family to two family and allowing more people to live on this lot is somehow demeaning to the public interest. I think is very degrading to anybody and everybody who's ever lived in a two-family home. There's nothing particularly noxious or offensive about people who live in two-family homes, nor is there anything particularly noxious or offensive about two-family homes themselves. We recognize the land in the town is at a premium. We further recognize that in the central Muncie area where there is a particular demand for housing because of the shopping and the lifts and other infrastructure that is present, individuals have repeatedly come before this board to ask for you to work with them to find an appropriate balance between the needs of their families and the numerical guidelines that apply to these lots, recognizing, as this board well knows, that probably over half of the lots in the town of Roundville themselves right now are not in compliance with the zoning in various ways, shapes, and forms. So these are guidelines, they're aspirations, and applicants consistently come here to try to find with you a way to harmonize their development, harmonize their objectives for the lot that they own with the town's needs and with the public interest. And that's why it's called a balancing test. Because all these different elements go onto the scale, and we're here to work with you to achieve an appropriate balance that reflects the needs of the community, the desires of the applicant, and the objectives of the board that are critical hearing before this evening. So we welcome that conversation with you, and look forward to work with you on the application in a way that balances all the factors that you have to take into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garvin. Hearing both sides of this case, is there anything your applicant can do to give a little relief to those wishing to keep it close to a one-family neighborhood?
Oh, I did not. I understand there was some correspondence that was distributed tonight. I haven't seen that. That hasn't been shared with me. So
It sounded rather detailed in nature, so in order for me to provide a detailed response, I would probably have to look at that in greater detail. This is the R15A zone. I think a two-family home is perfectly suitable for the lot. We proposed a two-family with one accessory apartment. Our concession, Madam Chair, would be to remove that accessory apartment and leave it as a two-family home. This was a 3-lot subdivision that was approved some years back. Each of those lots is, they're different lots that have been sold off in this neighborhood. And this is another lot which is on Miele Road. And I think the board is well aware that there have been a number of applications of individuals coming before the board seeking relief in this neighborhood. And what does that indicate? It indicates very strongly that there is a demand among people to live in a particular neighborhood in a particular way. And just because they want to live in a two-family home, they shouldn't be told that they have no need to apply to live in this neighborhood. In fact, I would note that for all of the, notion that was offered this evening that there is no act more horrible in the history of government than to approve something other than a single-family home. The city of Minneapolis, to the delight of every fair housing and affordable housing activist in this country, actually eliminated exclusively single-family housing zones. Exclusively single-family housing zones are widely derided as perpetuating all sorts of economic segregation. So I think that it is important to keep in mind that there are many, many reasons why you allow a variety of housing types in the neighborhood. Zoning is not supposed to work to keep the one-family people in one place and the two-family people in another place and the apartment people in another place. That's not the purpose of zoning. The purpose of zoning is to be able to have communities that respond to the full breadth of the human experience. And these just fantasies about all these horrible things that are going to happen if two families live on this lot. I mean, really, it's going to be so bad.
Mr. Carver, you're willing to take away one accessory?
Yes, sir.
The concerns of the neighborhood.
Yes.
Without leaving the accessory and taking away one apartment, making one apartment one accessory.
I don't know that that's.
And it would like be much more compliant with the neighborhood.
I don't know that that's necessarily. I don't know that that's necessarily a realistic option commercially, but I'd be happy to consult with my client about that.
So, Lehman, you're saying that'll be more compliant with the neighborhood as a statement, or more compliant with what the neighbors want?
Whether you want to interpret it.
Okay.
But I'm responding to what I heard this evening over here on the floor, that's I'm responding. So we want to be literal about my words, that's your choice. I'm responding to what was said this evening. And based on Mr. Carver, who's willing to remove accessory for whatever sensitivity there is to whoever.
You're going to have to afford me some time, Mr. Martin, to go buy the book of commentaries on your pronouncements so I can fully understand what you intend, from your words. Yes, I'm going to need the Rashi on it, yeah.
It's not Rashi, we're
Right,
yeah, it's not your observation of the neighborhood, it's your observation of the conflict that's taking place in this room.
correct.
Okay, any other discussions?
If the board does want me to explore options of its reduction, if they are in response to that letter, I would need to do that in a more detailed fashion, but that's what I have for you at this point in terms of modifications we're willing to make in terms of removing the accessory, and we could contemplate a reduction in the floor area ratio, but my client is very insistent at this point on proceeding with a two-family home. If I'm going to have to discuss alternatives to that with him, that's not a discussion I can have right now.
I do want to speak on I want to speak at least my own words, that there's no way I'm going to give the side setback, as I've done many, many times. Larger properties is different in this case, where literally the neighbors living next door to this home come out to concerned and they don't want it to be too close to their home. I probably would not give the side setback, just to keep that in mind. Whatever distance, once you're going to go back and see what you can do, you keep that in mind.
I appreciate you sharing that, and we can be guided accordingly. I'll be able to share that with the engineer, and they can see what kind of modifications they can make to the site. Perhaps there's something that can be designed that can be more satisfactory to with respect to that, number one.
I know exactly what it means.
The applicant's gonna come back with an amended application, and you need to reopen the public hearing.
You should turn it down and make them apply for it.
That's not how we place it.
I try to make a motion, see if it's acceptable.
So here's my 2 cents on this whole issue. It's not the first time that we've been here for this particular area, and I know most of the board members, most of the neighbors have heard the arguments from both sides. So, but the fact of the matter is, if we look at what applications have been on this board and what have been approved, as well as the applications alone tonight, I see there's 3 applications in this specific neighborhood. To say, you know, in the past, it's been at least 5 applications. That makes it a total of 8 applications in this specific neighborhood. So, you know, saying that this neighborhood will be overturned to the bad or to the worse, or it's going to change the neighborhood. Obviously, there's 8 people out of a neighborhood of what, 30 to 40 houses that are already given an application to have a 2-family house. That means there is a strong support in the neighborhood for 2-family houses. In terms of also the size of the lot, 11,468, there was a different application where the neighbors did not object, and the lot size was 90,000, and they say the reason is because it's a bigger lot. Well, one of the things that I've heard tonight that bothers the neighbor is the traffic. It's going to create a lot more traffic. Well, the traffic on the street doesn't know if there's 90,000 square feet on the property, if it's 14,000 or it's 12,000. Once the cars get off of that property, they know one thing: they have to get through that road. So in terms of traffic, it doesn't really matter. In terms of changing the neighborhood, I think we passed that already, since the board has approved similar applications to this. Not one, but I think the board has approved 4 applications for 2-family houses. In that regard, I don't see the board to change its precedent that this board have set by do approving 2-family. However, the board did not ever approve in this neighborhood 2+1, so I would think that would be a little excessive, as well as the floor area ratio, in my opinion, is also a little bit high.
Anyone else?
Mr. Singer, I hear everything that you're saying. I also want us to look at each application as a separate application. Anyone else? You had a motion that you wanted to...
I try to make a motion, see if it's support. First, I would like to say that in regards to a 2-family or family and accessory, I would just echo what Mr. Singer just said. The traffic is no difference between 2-family and 1-family and accessory apartment. It's still the same. The layout may be different, either it's side by side or it's a top and bottom. It's almost the same thing. So my motion would be as follows: to approve XBA 4689, giving the lot width. I'm going to get back to the side setback and total side setback and street frontage after I will give 65% of the maximum development coverage, bring down the floor area ratio to second. I'm trying to get a percentage. Say to 65, bring down the floor area ratio to 65. Automatically, I believe that now the total side setback will now change. I don't know exactly what the percentage would change, what this would change the percentage of the total side setback, but I will put into my motion that the total side setback should be up to 30. Means that we require this 50, and we should give basically 15. It's either 15 on each side or 30 total, and side setback for a minimum of
You're going to do the total side setback to 30, that
automatically put it to 15. Overriding the GML. Also wanted to address the parking area. I believe this is one of the, we have something to speak on regards to the parking. This type of parking, this has been approved, not been approved, this is the type of parking that has been recommended to us, I believe, by our professionals. This is the type of parking they want. this has been done, this is how we're now developing all over this type of parking spaces.
So Lefkowitz, while you're making the motion, I just want to interrupt and mention that the last time we approved the property, even though as Chairwoman said so clearly, each application should be looked at on its own, we specifically made a height restriction so that it stays in compliance with what? Oh, that's good. We specifically gave a height restriction so that again, we're based on how we saw the neighborhood, this is when we saw that the homes are lower homes, to keep it down and then it will really be a two-family and not having additional rental space on the bottom. We made a height restriction. In addition to the height restriction, we only have such a large floor area ratio. So I'm just saying.
Which one do you have the floor area ratio? What was the height that we gave? 60?
What I can remember is 0.6. But as far as the height, we kept the height, I think it was 27 here, you know, you have to realize the last home, like you say, every application says, the last home, both neighbors on both sides of the home did not object.
So what would you like to see the height?
It's very different, that application to this. So there's different factors that we take into account. So that's why I'm just pointing out, that's why maybe I would give anything to the side setback. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's very hard not to give anything on the side setback because this is the side. Again, this comes even if it would be one family. It would need a side setback.
Perhaps. I don't know if by law they would need it or not. That's what
I believe they would need the side setback.
I'm not so sure.
Now, in regards to the height, what do you want me? I mean, I give you the honor of.
Whatever it was, 26 feet, so that you know it's going to be a real two-family.
I'll add the motion. First of all, I want to change the floor area ratio to 60 and add to the motion to restrict the height to 28 feet. And they should make sure to include the play area in the backyard.
Just so you understand, the applicant is not seeking a variance in the height of the building.
Right, but could we put a height restriction on that?
I don't believe you can.
We did it in the past.
I don't believe that they're not asking for a variance, they're allowed to build to the height that's stated in the table. I don't think you can enforce them to build. Maybe they voluntarily do it, but I don't think you can enforce that.
So if we made it contingent and they agreed that it would be contingent, otherwise it wouldn't be contingent.
I'll leave it in the motion. We'll take the legals up later. I mean, but I'll leave it in the motion. So make sure.
I have to interrupt. You cannot, just like the applicant can't change the application, you can't do it before it becomes a new application. So I'm cautioning, that's nice, but their attorney should be telling them this. I'm cautioning the board that you're doing this at your own legal peril.
So what is your
even if it's well intentioned, you can't do it.
Thank you.
Also include play area in the backyard and to follow